It's the end of the season for this 2-cycle equipment, and I'm going to show you what I do to store it so it'll fire right up next spring. Let's do it! Now the process is basically the same for all this equipment. The first thing I'm going to do is drain the fuel out of the gas tank. What I do is I start it up, I'll dump it in the gas tank here, and then I'll run it out of the carburetor. Now I'm running out of the carburetor. Alright, now the next thing I like to do is put a little 2-cycle oil in the filter, through the fuel lines, and into the carburetor mainly. That'll keep the diaphragm and all the parts in the carburetor lubricated from drying out and getting stiff. So I just take a little 2-cycle oil, dump it in a container. You can also, if you don't want to do this, just dump this in the tank. Then I pull the fuel filter out. And I'll put that in the oil, push the primer bulb, and let that fill up with 2-cycle oil. There, it's pulling it in. Beautiful. And that's pushing that through the carburetor. Now I can pull the filter out, drop it back in the tank, and I like to pull the starter a few times to get that into the cylinder and lubricate the cylinder and the piston. It's the same procedure. We'll just dump the 2-cycle oil in the tank, and you want the tank full enough so that the filter's submerged, and then just do the same thing. Prime it, get that 2-cycle oil pushing through the carburetor, and we're right about here now, almost to the carburetor. Alright, we're going into the carburetor now. This is what's going to keep your seals, your diaphragm, everything lubricated from drying out. So she'll start right up next time you use it. And I just wanted to show you this carburetor. I took the purge bulb, the primer bulb off it, and wanted to show you how that 2-cycle oil gets into the carburetor and keeps all these diaphragms and ports and everything lubricated from the old gas breaking down and building up in there and clogging it up. And now we've got it all through the carburetor. And pull the starter a few times. Get that piston and cylinder wall lubricated. Now you may or may not want to pull this. On the positive side, like I said, you're lubricating the piston and the cylinder wall. But on the negative side, you're going to get some 2-cycle oil on your spark plug, which will make it a little harder to start when you put it back in use. Worst case scenario, if it doesn't fire right up, you just pop your spark plug out, clean it off, dry it off, put it back in, purge through the new fuel, 2-cycle fuel, and she'll fire right up. And dump this oil back out. And then after I drain the 2-cycle oil out of the gas tank, I like to hit the purge bulb a few more times just to push the oil through back into the tank on the return line, and then it's just a nice thin coat of 2-cycle oil on all the carburetor parts. Now in spring, all you need to do, fuel it up with 2-cycle gas, prime it through the carburetor, start it up. It'll smoke a little more than usual, but everything will be open, clean, not dried out. You won't have to take your carburetor off to clean it out, or order a rebuild kit, or sometimes even you have to order a new carburetor. But that'll keep your machine in tip-top shape, firing up every year after storage. Now a chainsaw is going to be just a little bit different because there's no primer bulb. So what I do is drain the gas, run it out of the carburetor just like I showed you. I also drain the bar chain oil because those things leak. They're notorious for leaking, and I don't want it all over my garage floor. But I'll put some of the oil, 2-cycle oil, in the fuel tank and do the same thing, except there's no primer bulb. We're just going to pull the starter cord, the recoil, and then I'm going to dump it back out just like I did the other equipment. I'll be good to go till next time I use it. The last thing I like to do with my hedge trimmer, take a little silicone, WD-40, and just spray the blade. And you can do this before, when it's running. Just spray it on there, and it keeps it from rusting, keeps it sharp, and keeps it holding up well through the winter. I'll put the cover on. And then you just find a safe, secure area to store your equipment where it's dry. We've got our carburetor all lubricated with 2-cycle oil. The piston is also lubricated with the same thing. So that's all going to be in nice condition next year when we want to use it. We don't have any old gas sitting in it. That's going to separate and crud everything up. Got our blade lubricated. We're ready to go. Next year, as I've done for year after year after year, when I need to use this, these few minutes that it took to do that, this thing will fire right up. It always starts for me on the second or third pull. You'll be glad you did it. If this video was a help to you, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing. And I look forward to helping you with other projects online.